Okay, so it's no secret that the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole primarily deals in European related aesthetics and medieval narrative fantasy. Is that a problem? Absolutely not. Their entire gaming franchises, physical, paper based, and digital, that have always been in that realm. And who am I to get in the way of success, you know? However, a lot of people have started noticing Final Fantasy is like almost hardwired to either go to two settings, and the second one is the definition of a rarity once in a blue moon, and that is medieval Europe and then modern fantasy. No in between. Yes, there are some steampunk elements in certain things, but they still got that medieval, so it's more medieval modern fantasy, or it's medieval steampunk, or modern fantasy slight steampunk. The last two, again, being very, very rare things. So I decided, you know what? Why not give Final Fantasy, or really Square-Enix, some suggestions on other places that actual fans would like to see. Yes, I am well aware of the question that has been looming around in relation to Final Fantasy 16 and its setting, and I believe the director of it answered the question very well. I won't give you the entire thing verbatim, but essentially the question was, so is there any attempt at diversity in Final Fantasy 16? To which he stated, barely when it comes to ethnicities. The primary goal was a strong narrative and having diversity within the restrictions of the narrative. However, that doesn't mean we don't have diversity of personality and, decent writing. Perfectly okay with that statement. But of course, vocal minorities, no pun intended, or ironic in this case, I guess, didn't really like that answer. A lot of people accepted it. But let me tell you something. As a Creole, one of the least represented ethnicities, subcultures, cultures in the entire hemisphere of the North American continent, I'm including Canada, we're kind of sort of used to it. We're very, very used to it. I personally think I can only name 2 actors that have come out as Creole. This is not something hidden. This is not something, at least to my knowledge, frowned upon in North America, but it is just something that is considered rare. Do we number in the millions? Yes. Do we exist outside of Louisiana? Yes. And a part of me will never not be annoyed when people ask me that. But I'm not here to rant and grumble or, spread something in particularly negative ranty. This is more like an open letter, an open video. I'm not sure what the term would be for, hey, Square-Enix, look at this video. Hey, fans want to teach you something. The minority ones, come, look at me. This is actually one of the few times on this channel where this is a video which job it is to specifically get attention. And I don't mean that in the make me popular, make me famous. I mean that in the let's hope that one day we can inspire Final Fantasy 18, maybe Final Fantasy 19 to be in a setting that is not the primary 2, which is medieval era, modern era, maybe sprinkle in some obvious steampunk related material. Now, that being said, I'm just gonna put my 2 cents in first. Okay, and I guess I'll go up. So for me, what I would like to see is, man, come on, let's take these guys to some hijinks and a hybridized culture shit. I want to see legitimately the world of Final Fantasy, we'll call it Final Fantasy 17, 18, whatever, go to South Korea and Africa. I want to see some journey where we have this mythical continent that's based off of South Korea and a mythical continent based off of Africa, not just fucking Egypt. That's a cop-out as far as I'm concerned. And I want to have it where quite literally the characters go on a journey where instead of trying to quote unquote save the world, they're trying to stop 2 nations from going to an all-out war because they don't realize they got tricked and manipulated by somebody who just wants to weaken both the nations because, whatever reason X, Y, Z. I want some female character from South Korea or themed after South Korean ancient shit, and I want some African male guy, obviously themed after ancient African stuff, but obviously put a little bit of mythic stuff into it. And I want them to come together to have this adventure, because it could start off with everybody hating them because they realize, oh shit, we're not supposed to be fighting, and they immediately get exiled and they have to bond together. Basically Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but Xenoblade Chronicles 3 didn't even invent the my enemy is now my ally because everybody else hates us situation. That's not original in the slightest, but it's effective. and then they go cross country meeting various people who were in hiding because they didn't believe in the war, or old friends from both sides who think, nah, you guys aren't bullshitting. There's no way in hell that you would make up something like this. Okay. And then eventually they get to some like mayor or some chief or some like high profile figure, and they say, I will give you 30 days to give us proof, and I will grant you safe passage, but keep this in mind, not everybody will care about your safe passage. And they go on this cool adventure, and I want to see them have some non-standard weapons too. Let one of the main characters, you know what, let the female one use Tonfa. Did Tonfa come from fucking South Korea? Hell nah, but it's East Asian myth and African myth fantasy shit, okay? We're not here to be accurate one-to-one. So I would love to see that. And they eventually end up finding out that this person is held up in another country. They meet a few friends along the way, and some of them, they have the essence of particular Final Fantasy jobs, which is what they do when they don't give them traditional jobs. But in this one, they'll be able to have a double jobs, or everyone will be able to have a secondary job. They can't change their main job. Their main job is either their main job or their sub job, or subclass, which is the job they start off with. So both of the characters will start off, for one thing, the Korean lady, we'll just call her, I don't know, Jessica, because we can. She'll start off as a warrior, right? And she can evolve that class, but she can't get rid of it because that's the one she's built into, the default. And the male character, we'll call him Zach, because fuck you, I can. He'll start off as a class called a hunter, and he uses a spear. And eventually, when he gets it to max level, he becomes Dragoon. And when she maxes out warrior, her final class becomes paladin, or if she can become a knight, which I know is pretty cool mix right there, because here's a Far East Korean who's a warrior based off of Eastern stuff, but now we're gonna put a small little influence of medieval stuff. I'm not saying don't have no medieval influence. I'm just saying don't make the primary influence, stuff like that. So it still conforms to that inherent Gary Gygax D&D system that Final Fantasy was built onto. And they could have friends that are like a Spartan, but their subclass can be ninja, and the subclasses can change. So the warrior female could be warrior ninja or ninja warrior. The hunter who becomes a dragoon, he could be dragoon ninja or dragoon warrior. And it basically just gives them alterations to their abilities. And I would love to see, because there's so much architecture, and there's so many different locations you can do, and there's so much colorful outfits that can be made with fantasy Far East and fantasy African that just, well, I won't say they go and explore it. Genshin Impact is basically the weird middle ground hybrid of fantasy Far East clothing and traditional Middle Earth or European fantasy clothing. I'm gonna pass it over to Deathclaw. And Deathclaw, I'm very curious. What do you want to see happen as far as a future aesthetic in Final Fantasy? We'll say 17, 20, doesn't matter.
Okay, so first off, originally I wanted to go with something more towards Sparta. The main reason being, I'm sure most of y'all have watched the movie 300, which is based off on the myth of the Battle of Thermopylae. I'm sorry if I butchered the name of that. But then I started thinking, me being of Mexican descent, the Aztec culture is really big on me. So I've gone into a lot of the histories of the, classic myths of Mexico, and the biggest one that pops up to me is Popocatépetl and is the Huatni, which is basically a love story.
That, right?
But it makes sense because Popocatépetl,
I'm going to need you to spell that in the chat, right?
Yeah, I can spell it. Give me a second. Hold on, Nahuatl is very hard. So anyway, this is I guess you could call it a love story of a warrior that goes off to war and leaves his lover behind, and then the lover gets tricked into thinking that her warrior lover has died, which would make for a perfectly amazing plot hook, basically. A love story gone wrong. And there's even an old painting representing that. But since it's Final Fantasy, we need summons. And my opinion is that we should have Quetzalcoatl, which is basically the Aztec god of the rains and the waters, the giant feather snake, be one of the summons, along with
Yeah, if memory
Huitzilopochtli, which
serves,
is
I think Quetzalcoatl is only in like 3 games as a summon.
wait, really? It's in 3 games?
Only in 3, yeah. Final Fantasy VIII being the first appearance.
Huh? I was not aware of that. But I mean, Huitzilopochtli, which
I
is
mean,
the
it's Final Fantasy
god
VIII,
of
so
Huitzilopochtli, which is the god of war of the Aztec culture, could be another one. Another summon. Basically, blood for the blood gods in that sense, because he requires blood, and after a certain amount of enemy kills, you basically get your limit break and you can summon him. In the sense of it is, blood and whatnot.
okay. So you want
But the
South
main
American
protagonist
Aztec.
should be
Oh, shit.
Popocatépetl.
So you essentially want, South American Aztec culture, and to lightly touch on this story. That's pretty cool, actually. All right. So what class or what new class would you engineer for this future Final Fantasy game?
I'd have to say the Aztec shaman.
Can you please stop saying things that I can't spell?
Aztec shaman? How is shaman hard
okay,
to spell?
yeah, you ran that together. Aztec shaman. Okay. So you want a shaman? Actually, huh? No, I think I don't think we've ever had a shaman.
And it's interesting because in the myth, in the story of Popocatépetl, which is the Chihuahua, there's actually an antagonist which could play for the shaman because he was a known friend, and I guess for Chihuahua to believe him that Popocatépetl had died in battle, he had to have been very prominent.
Okay, now next up on the list, because I consulted people who aren't even actually here today, we're going to talk about Ayana Tanaka, habitual obsessed player of Final Fantasy XIV, who told me that she would like to see the French mid-century period and aesthetic. Oh, and she wants a witch class, but the witch does long distance, long range magic through antique handguns and pistols. So basically Bayonetta. I even threw up Bayonetta gifts when she told me that shit. But yeah, I think that would actually be pretty cool if you stop and think about it, because I think one of the only, there's basically almost every culture outside of, medieval Europe has not been touched on, but I think French would be one of the easiest ones for them to actually, be able to handle and get done. So
I do have one question though.
What's up?
You said a lot like Bayonetta.
Yes, because Bayonetta's a witch.
I know, but does this rogue have high heels that have guns in them?
Well, anything's possible. It's a fantasy. That's actually a good one. And after her, next up, I spoke to Triple M3. Shout outs to Triple M3, by the way. Feel free to look him up on SoundCloud. His music's pretty tight. Triple M3 told me he would like to see, which was, you would think it would have happened by now, 100% Far Eastern themed Japanese fantasy Final Fantasy game. Like from the ground up, they are doing nothing but Japanese ancient mythical fantasy aesthetic. Now I know what a lot of people are saying. They've done that before. Yes, but I mean the entire game, not just one specific area that's in every single Final Fantasy, or Final Fantasy X's flirting with the idea of doing Far East stuff because of the way Yuna dressed, but really it was only Yuna.
Or Final Fantasy 14 Samurai class.
Yes, but that's not an entire game aesthetic, like I'm saying. Now, he didn't particularly make up a fantasy class other than, oh, I want samurais to be like the main class, but they already done that. Yes, it is rare, I acknowledge that, but they have technically done it. But I'm not going to fault him for it. You know, if he wants samurais, or he wants more samurais outside of MMO format, then he should be able to get it. Now, just as a reminder, I'm going to say this, I said in the beginning of the video, and I'm going to say it at the end of this video. To whomever hear this, if you think that we have some quote-unquote issue with Final Fantasy not being diverse enough, shut the fuck up, you Melanie Mac sounding ass dumbass. Listen, Final Fantasy is as malleable as a fucking marshmallow, okay? Okay, so with that being said, thank you for stopping in, as usual, Deathclaw. For you Spotify and, you know, podcaster people, the YouTube version of this video is our first 4K video, so I hope you like it, or rather, I hope it loads well. If there's any issues with it, or a lot of, you know, on-screen issues, let me know, and we'll go back to 1080, or maybe just keep, you know, 1200 or 2K resolution going forward. With that being said, I will see you guys when I see you guys. Love is love.
Love is love.